All right. Well,
Hello.
hello, hello. We are here together. I'm Richard Corbett.
And I am Brandy Jordan, and welcome to today's talk on the eclipse.
Yeah, we were seeing the full moon last night, and it was just spectacular. We thought, you know what, we should jump on and talk about the eclipse happening today, which for most of us in the US, we're not able to see this because it's happening right now. So got to be on the other side of the planet for the best viewing.
Yeah.
But it's still powerful. So we thought we'd take a closer look at it, look at the chart, look at the gates, look at the signs. It's been a very intense astrological weather going on. And we thought it'd be fun to kind of explore that together. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
And kind of find the balance. Sometimes we can get caught up in things, but when we know what's happening, we can find our way through easier. And I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah, transits. I love talking about transits every week on the transit report on Mondays. I love the astrological weather. I find it fascinating. We always say, though, if we are following our type, strategy, and authority, then we're always dressed for any transit. Yet at the same time, they are impacting us. It is the neutrino ocean that we swim in 24 hours a day. And I think just being aware of what's happening helps us embody that energy. When I think of astrology and I look at transits and I look at the body graph and I look at transits, I'm always reminded that in the body graph, we have all 64 gates. We have all 9 centers. We have all the channels. And so even though we often think more about our definition and the imprinting from our natal chart, we are experiencing all of the gates and the archetypes of the whole chart. And it's the same in astrology. Even though we have this very intense and powerful lunar eclipse that's happening in Taurus, which is opposite Scorpio, and we're going to go further into that, whether or not you have any planets in those signs, they're still impacting your natal chart in a particular way. And just the awareness of that, I think, helps us bring it inward, how we can relate to that so that we're not just operating without awareness. We're actually seeing in real time what's happening,
right,
bringing it to our inner world and our inner psyche and seeing what it's showing us. Transits, I believe, are here to support us.
Right.
I mean, we are born at a very specific moment in time. And so every transit we receive every day was written in the music for us. So it's our life. This is the dance. We get to dance to this music. And so I think it just has really strong implications on bringing the awareness so that we can incorporate what we need to see.
Yeah.
Right? What are we missing? What elements could support us in our relationships, in our communication, and just in general happiness overall, I think.
Yeah, it just helps us find the way, really. Before I started following the transits, when things went awry or I experienced chaos, I always thought maybe it was something that I had done. And so I wasted a lot of energy spending time trying to figure that out. And now I know that everything is written for me and that everything is happening in my favor. And so being able to follow the transits really, like you said, allows you to dress for the weather and know that there's nothing that you've done wrong.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. Really beautiful. Well, let's take a look at it. Let's pull it up. Let's see what's going on here. Okay. Randy made this beautiful slide here to get our creative juices flowing here. There's this Scorpio, this beautiful beautiful image. So this is where the sun is now, and we're going to look at the other charts as well to give the bigger backdrop of what's happening. Let's start with Scorpio, and let's see here. Yeah. There we go. Let me get my
So as Richard is getting his things together, and here he's back.
Pardon the interruption.
Yeah.
I just thought it helps to draw a little bit just to so we can
there we go.
Point to what we're talking about here. Yeah. Okay, here we go. So let's start out by looking at Scorpio, right? So, well, actually, let me back up just a moment. Okay, so we had 2 weeks ago, we had a solar eclipse, which was quite beautiful. A lot of people got to see that in the Western Hemisphere. Very dramatic when we can see a solar eclipse. And so we talked quite a bit in the transit reports about eclipses in general. We're in eclipse season. They happen every 6 months. Anytime we have a full moon or a new moon that's near the nodal axis, we're going to have an eclipse. And so they always come in at least pairs. So they're always going to be two. Either in this case, we had the solar eclipse first, and now today we're having the lunar eclipse. Right. It can go the other way. And sometimes you can get three. But that's why we call it a season, because every 6 months we're going to have a succession of these on that lunar cycle. And so we had it in Libra, right? We had the solar eclipse with the new moon in Libra. And so we talked a lot about relationships, the sign of Libra. We talked about harmony, and Libra is so much about seeing both sides of two different stories. It's ruled by Venus, so it also brings in this beauty, sensuality, harmony within relationships. So for people that are Libra sun signs like myself, so much of our life is about learning about myself through my relationships with others. Right. It's this whole idea of duality, right? There's always a pair, at least. And then opposite that, we had Aries, the polarity to Libra, which is all about self-expression and Mars, and this is who I am. And so that polarity between Aries and Libra is always this kind of tug of war between self-expression within the dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah, and how to bring harmony.
Yeah, and in all oppositions, that's part of what we're thinking about is the balance, because it is sort of a tug of war, two different polar opposite perspectives having a conversation with each other, and somehow we have to be in the middle of that. And it's easy to get lost one way or the other. Right. So you can see a lot of projections when we talk about oppositions. There's a lot of shadows because it's hard to see. To see both sides of the story, you have to be really balanced in the middle, to relax the eyes so that you can, out of your peripheral position, hold these two elements together.
Right, equanimity.
Yeah. And so also in Aries at that eclipse, it was near Chiron. So Chiron was involved, this idea of wounding and the sign of Aries through self-expression. If anyone was feeling vulnerabilities within themselves and how they express themselves, that could have been highlighted. If they were feeling disempowered in a relationship,
that's right.
That was a big theme of that. That eclipse would have brought that to light, so to speak.
And because Pluto is where it's at, it is shining light on the limitations that are within the relationship, not bringing harmony.
Yeah, great point. Pluto was in basically a T-square to the nodal axis, and therefore the new moon 2 weeks ago. And so eclipses have that element where they do bring up shadows, right? Our one of our two luminaries is going dark, right? So historically, it's always been a really dramatic time.
Right. And so 2 weeks ago, we were seeing what our limitations were, being able to be in the death and rebirth, the center, the equanimity, while we watched disharmony or harmony, whatever was happening. We got to set intentions about what was going to happen in these next 2 weeks, this eclipse portal. So
now, as we have come 2 weeks since then, and we're having this lunar eclipse is now in Taurus, and the sun is moved into Scorpio since that's happened. And so I think we should focus on Scorpio first. Let's talk about where the sun is as astrological sign. What's happening over here is that we have what we would call a conjunction, a stellium of the sun, Mercury, and Mars are all in Scorpio now. Now, at the last eclipse, when they were all three of those were closer to the lunar nodal axis in Libra. Also at that time, all three of these planets went through a square to Pluto as they moved forward. And that's what was also bringing a lot of that tension to that dynamic we were speaking about. But now they've all moved into Scorpio. So we have a very different energy going on.
And 28 and 44. So 2 of them are in 44 currently. And then 28. So it is about, the intuitive understanding of who these relationships are, what's purposeful and who is purposeful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, let's just thinking about Scorpio as a sign, it's fixed water. It's the symbol is the scorpion, which is pretty dramatic. I mean, the scorpions are kind of a little bit scary, but they're ancient for one thing. They have a claw. They have poison, they have venom.
They could be poison, or they could be a toxin, or a medicine.
Yeah, they could
It could be
kill
used
and they
either
can
way.
heal, right?
Mhm.
Depending on how it's used. They
Yeah.
go underground.
Yeah.
They're nocturnal.
Yeah.
So when we think Scorpio, which was traditionally ruled by Mars, the god of war, and now we have also added Pluto, the
Yeah.
modern planet. So we're thinking about the underworld.
Yeah.
Fixed water. I often think of that scene of the ocean at night with the moonlight and how beautiful that looks to stare out into that. It's such an emotional response to see that beauty and tranquility.
Right.
But yet we also know that below that surface of that dark ocean,
Right.
there's a whole universe.
There's something in there.
Yeah.
And so the underworld of what we intended 2 weeks ago in relationship came to light now, is now in the light. The underworld of what we thought we want. Is this true what we wanted?
Right.
Is this where we're going? Does this feel good? Is this something that Venusian?
Yeah, it really speaks to our truth, being ruled by Pluto, which is the planet of truth and transformation and death. And so all of these elements is what Scorpio really drags us into the underworld, to really see the shadows, to see what wasn't exposed for. Scorpio brings us this mystical, occult knowledge because it's something from underneath. And so this is part of the element that the sun is in. And when we have Mercury close enough to be in a conjunction to sun, Mercury always supports whoever it's next to, if you will. So being next to the sun, which it generally is due to its revolution around the sun, it's part of this conversation. It's lending its communication ability to the sun's energy in Scorpio. And then not far from there, we have Mars. So we have both co-rulers of Scorpio
hanging out together
in the sign and all tied up in this eclipse. So this is why, if you've been hearing other people talk about this, it's so intense. I mean, this is a really strong astrological weather just from this one side of the story right here.
Yeah.
And I think that, not only does it speak to the seasons, as we're moving, the leaves behind us are falling off these beautiful yellow trees here. The temperatures are cooling. We were going to do this outside, but there's a storm coming in, right? So the first snow of the year for us, anyway, where we are, is coming. And so the earth is drawing back in, right? We're deep in the thick of fall. We're in the transition, this fixed water sign of Scorpio, and we can really feel that. And again, when we think Pluto and death and transformation, that brings so much feeling of uncertainty. That can bring fear, but there can also be the rebirth. Well, what's to come? Something has to die for something new to live. And so this whole regenerative process, the earth is doing it, the trees and the plants, and we can feel that as well.
And we're doing it. We're in-breathing and out-breathing, and our cells are living and dying all at the same time. It's always continually happening. And that equanimity that you say, that standing in the center and allowing what is finished to be done, and focusing our eyes towards what is good and what's coming.
Yeah. It's a great, a lot of support in this Scorpio season to do the inner work, to do the shadow work, do whatever healing there is, to get to the essence, to get to the truth. We have this portal while we're in the Scorpio season, and particularly emphasized with the eclipse going on, because it really is like a portal. We call it eclipse portal. We are in the portal, at least for another hour here until the eclipse is exact. But speaking to this going inward, going deep, there's a lot of other information being activated in our chart that I think we should look at that lends itself to this story. Pluto has been in Capricorn for 15 years now, since 2008. And it's dipped its toes into Aquarius for a little while, came back into Capricorn. It's moving forward again, but just barely moving at all. I mean, it because it was just stationary. Now it's moving forward. It's moving like a few seconds of an arc per day, which is almost nothing. So it's here at gate 60, line 2, in the gate of limitations, in the channel of mutation.
Right. And this could be said, as we were talking earlier, moving from Capricorn then into Aquarius. And then back over into Capricorn again later next year. I mean, that's not what we're talking about today, but I thought it was fascinating to see the limitation that we are experiencing in the world right now. The limitation of what Capricorn can bring. So it's like the edges of Capricorn, and it's holding on. And so it feels like we're getting a bit of the shadow
Yeah. Yeah. Capricorn's ruled by Saturn. So
Mhm.
it speaks a lot to our structure, to our governments,
Yeah.
to all of our seven centered institutions, basically.
Mhm.
We've seen the underbelly
Right.
of them over the last 50 years. As soon as Pluto went into Capricorns when we had the 2008 financial crisis.
Right.
And so since that time, our trust in our institutions across the globe. We've
Right.
seen the
Has been
cracks
breaking
and the
down.
fissures. Yeah, Pluto's been going through there
Mhm.
and doing this work, kind of like a roto-rooter
Yeah.
going through
Moving
Capricorn
everything
for the
out.
last 15 years. And as we're saying, as it does this forward retrograde a couple times at the end of Capricorn, that's why it's feeling so intense. It's like
Yeah.
it's wrapping up its job here.
And we can sense the new paradigm coming. We all have this feeling of things can be better and they should be better, and better feels like it's right on the horizon, or
Yeah.
but it's still in this chaos
It's
or
still in the channel of
resistance.
mutation too.
Yeah. Yeah.
This gate 60 here. But actually, we're
The
going to
second
have
line.
gate 3 later on this week in the transit report. I'll talk more about that. But simply to give this power of Pluto just really standing still here, which brings a lot of emphasis. These outer planets, they're slow moving at any time, but when they go retrograde and stop, boy, they really hold that space in the
Yeah.
sky. And so Pluto is really, it's kind of like if a car runs over your foot and it goes fast, it hurts, but your foot might be okay. But if a car stops and it's the tires on your foot,
Yeah.
you can feel that increased pressure. And so I think all of these outer planets, because they're not moving, we're getting an extra deeper pressure from them wherever they
Right.
lie. And so here we have it in, an individual gate.
And we were talking, yeah, I was just going to finish what we were talking
Mhm.
about earlier when we were talking about the tire analogy, because what the invitation here is to stand still, is to surrender to the tire being on your foot, arrive fully in wherever it is that you are, even if it feels like chaos or like pressure or like gate 60 limitation, melancholy, individuated expression not being able to be heard or expressed, all of that arrive fully there, and then the answer of moving the car off your foot will arrive. But a lot of us are so busy trying to get the car off of our foot or look to find help, or we don't arrive where we are to allow the answer to come, which again speaks to some of these other things in the chart with 24 and things like that.
Yeah, well, let's go through them, because these individual gates, whether we have them defined in our birth chart or not, they're really being strongly activated. The space is being held, and as you're saying, it's like individual circuitry brings the melancholy, as you said. It does bring this uncertainty. It's uncomfortable, right? When the pulse is off, it's like, when is it going to change? When is something going to happen? So we all may be feeling just some level of angst, like, why are we not moving forward? Why are we seeing such horrific atrocities and war? And it's like, how can we not be making any headway on resolutions between all this? And I think a lot of that is because the outer planets aren't moving yet. The inner planets are going very fast right now. They're all moving above their average speed. So at the surface, there's a lot of chaos. It's really noisy, and frenetic and scary sometimes. But at a deeper level, things aren't moving. And that'll begin to change later in the month in January and February. These outer planets will all finally be moving forward. So that may portend that we'll have some direction that we're going in. But right now we're being asked to hold still, hold firm, and go inward and see what these gates mean to each of us, right? What is the creative side of that, the mutative side?
For sure. I mean, if we start from the bottom and go up, it's the limitation in crisis, the ability to assimilate yourself through new concepts to your network, the people who are correct for you, to transmute what is untrue in relationships and be able to begin anew, nurturing a purpose of some sort. Just traveling those numbers.
Yeah. And we'll take a look at Uranus, which is also going retrograde. It will turn direct at January 26th, but it's slowing down. So again, it's really going to be in gate 23 for quite a while. Line 4, I think it moves back to line 3 just for a little bit at the end of the year. But basically, it's in this space for a long time, the gate of assimilation.
In the Uranus placement, so it's not even like you can grab onto it either. It's just something that is you're going to watch unfold in front of you. Your ability to share what it is that you're experiencing.
Yeah, and I think it speaks to the unique expression of Gate 23, the individual voice.
Right, right.
The
This is my
unusual.
truth.
Gate 23 and Uranus have a very similar vibe in and of themselves. Uranus being the planet of unusualness and suddenness, and it just happens. Well, that's kind of like Gate 23 in the throat. It's like it's unusual, it's individual, may not have ever been heard by the tribe before, and then all of a sudden it just comes out. So we're under pressure here to speak our voice, yet being mindful of the precarious
timing.
times.
Yeah. It's
Back
timing.
to authority.
Back to timing. Yeah.
The timing of this pressure and how we respond to it
Right.
is extremely important. And then as we go to Saturn, also in an individual gate, here in the gate of abundance, the gate of spirit, emotional spirit, and the solar plexus.
You call it the handrail.
Yeah, well, it's in Pisces. We can see over here in the astrological chart, it's also in retrograde. Saturn will turn direct on November 5th, so just later next week. So again, it's really holding space in line 1 of gate 55,
right?
And which is the line of cooperation, which is interesting to have that word in an individual gate line
in a line 1.
Yeah, line 1. And it says cooperation with powerful forces.
Right. So who do I align myself with? So if we're building on the story, the limitation and chaos to assimilate my individual spirit and align it with power.
Yeah, and that's what I find so beautiful about these times, even though it can seem so dark and scary, and it's the cave that we don't want to go into. Scorpio, it's that ocean at night. Who really wants to jump into the ocean at night? I mean, some people do, but
I do.
Typically it's a little scary, but yet, this is where we are, and this is the opportunity, and this is where we can find who we are in the mid. And that's why these individual gates to me are speaking so loudly of how we have the resources now with this weather to tap into who am I in the midst of this world right now. It's a crazy world. We're going to go through some massive changes as Pluto enters into Aquarius next year for good. It's going to be a little bumpy till then, but the world is going to continue to seem, a little fast-paced, out of control.
And I love, if we're looking at the bigger picture and we're talking about the changes, say in 2027, and we're talking about the way that the future is moving into individuated expression. When we look at the weather and we look at the mythology of the planets, or as Richard calls it, the song that is written for us, you can see how beautifully choreographed it is in our favor to get us ready for what is coming if we just are able to stay in the middle.
And that's really that, whether we're talking a solar plexus defined person holding space at the low end of their wave, or we're talking about our individual circuitry, which gives melancholy and being at peace with that melancholic state at that time. There is such power there, and truth and answers for each of us.
And it's the gods, right? The global orchestration directory giving us everything we need if we just surrender to it.
And Saturn's been giving a little extra of a helping hand here at 0 degrees Pisces, because all of these planets, when they moved into Scorpio over the past week, they were trining Saturn, and you can see that trine is still within orb for this eclipse. It is fading this energy, but I really feel like Saturn was providing this trine, a very stable energy to guide us not only through this portal of the eclipse, but into Pisces. We're at 0 degrees, so it's still getting its footing in the 12th house, which is the house of spirituality, mysticism, imagination, creativity, even delusion and fantasy. It's this mutable water world of dissolution and transmutation. And Saturn being the planet of rigidity, of
discipline,
and structure, right? To me, when I see Saturn right now, this is the handrail that can let us go into our imaginations, into this world of what could be. Who am I what contribution might I have in what we're seeing in the world right now?
And so that's just such a beautiful gift or master key or mantra or whatever you want to call it, the thing to have in your pocket to whenever chaos gets you, or your nervous system is a little dysregulated, or you can't hear the voice of your authority. It is, who am I here? What is the greatest expression of me in this space?
Yeah. And speaking specifically to gate 55, it's abundance. What gives one abundance, for themselves?
Right.
What really is that? And how do we experience more of that? Right.
Divine selfishness.
Yeah. And then again, we're just going to keep with this individual theme because we've got Jupiter, which is also in retrograde.
Yep.
Up here in gate 24, the gate of rationalizing.
Right. So what do we how can we anchor into the world who we be when we don't know what the hell is happening? And that is through being able to quiet the mind and arriving where we're at. This 24, is, I believe, in Jupiter, is inviting us into some of those regular, real rutted and old neural pathways that we run that aren't maybe serving our 55, the abundance of our spirit. And so it's inviting us into more of an arrival into the silence, so that if there is something to be known, it can come and then be brought into form in that way.
Yeah, beautiful. Just so much individuality. Of course, we started with where our sun is for the eclipse today, which is also an individual channel in the gate of struggle. Gate 28 is actually the fear of life without meaning, and so that too is a very scorpionic. Makes sense. The gate 28 is in gate.
It does, for sure.
Scorpio. Right?
It is, for sure.
Has that quality to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's purposelessness, or you're going to jump in the dark water on purpose. There's got to be a reason for that. And so this is the intuitive, right, knowing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, speaking of Jupiter, that kind of draws my eye back to Taurus, because it's going to be conjunct this eclipse we're going through right now.
Right. Now we can move into Taurus a bit.
Yeah. So Taurus being the polarity of Scorpio, let's talk about Taurus.
Taurus is my sun sign.
That's right. That's right.
And Taurus is the grounded part of Venus. It is it is sensuality. It is food. It's touch. It's beauty. It's love. It's romance. It's all of those things. And I feel like this eclipse in this space is, like you always say, holding a balance between the Scorpio and the Taurus, but and being able to find the sensuality, the beauty, the comfort, the groundedness in whatever the darkness is that is making itself known to you, because we get to love all of us. That is abundance of spirit, in my opinion, is when we can allow the depths of our darkness to be here and live here right next to what we think is great about ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. As a fixed earth, both of these, well, I should say that really about this whole dynamic between Scorpio and Taurus, they're both fixed signs. So they're very, in that sense, rigid and solid and dependable, but they're holding where they are, right? And so that can give a bit of an inflexibility at a time when eclipses are also encouraging flexibility, because they often bring change and so forth. So again, just another bit of the duality thrown into this. But certainly, to your speaking there, the Taurus sign of that body, sensuality, the earth, our yard, our plants, our trees, connecting with that is really supportive right now, with the moon being there. And then if we think of Scorpio would be like what's underneath all that. Scorpio's looking at that sensuality and that earth and what grounds us, asking, but what's the truth behind that?
But what's purposeful, 28-4? But what's the purpose here? What the hell are we doing, and why are we doing it?
If it's ego-driven, superficial, something of that nature, something of a shallow nature, Scorpio is going to challenge that.
Right, because this time is inviting us to anchor truly in what's going to last about who we are. So Scorpio is just coming in to clean it house a little, right?
Yeah, well, it's definitely bringing that pressure, I think. It's the sun's energy really shining a light on the darkness. What is the Scorpio also has to do with contracts, right? What are the contracts behind relationships that we had in Libra? legal binding things, the secrets behind how deals got made. And all of that is up for discussion right now, particularly with Mercury there. Mercury's analyzing those details going, yeah, well, how did you get that house and land, or if it's in a relationship, how did it start? Or, you know, are you being honest and truthful? All these things. The sun is and Mercury and Mars are all putting their light on this right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So communication, because again, we started off with relating, and this being about the other and about our relating to ourselves through the other. And so I think another tool that could be valuable this time and every time is just more communication.
Yeah.
More communication about how you feel, what's going on inside, being able to share with whoever your beloved is, whatever your relating situation is, to be able to hear them and be heard at the same time. I think that that's a super important tool to be used right now.
And a good segue there into, let's look at the Earth and the Moon here in Gate 27. Gate of caring.
Right. So what's going to ground this purposefulness or purposelessness is nurturing, caring, loving.
Line 4 is called, in the Ravi Ching, is called the line of generosity, the natural sharing of attained abundance.
Right. So when I find equanimity and limitation, I can, it stands still in the chaos, assimilate my knowing, and bring forth a individual, maybe mutative, maybe empowering truth about who I am in the world and how I'm going to rationalize why that's important. Here's the purpose of that. And now I can share my spirit so generously with everyone around me, because I'm actually being it within whatever is going on. And I believe that's what attracts your fractal, you know, the people that are for you is when you are nurturing your own spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true, I think. And I'm also looking, as you say that, you know, and I'm reading this line here. It's so interesting. In line 4 of generosity, Jupiter is what sets the exaltation.
Oh.
And let me go ahead and read it. Magnanimous and qualitative sharing, the gift of rewarding those who are deserving, the power and strength to share generously. But interestingly, the detriment is set by Mars, which is opposite Jupiter. And when I say opposite, it is exactly to the degree opposite. Jupiter is in 11 degrees and Mars is in 11 degrees Scorpio. So here we have conjunct the eclipse. We have on its own, if we examine it from that, Mars in Scorpio, which we talked a little bit about. It rules Scorpio. Mars, the god of war and aggression and self-expression, is at its home.
Right.
And when we're at home, we're all more comfortable. It's our house. We can say what we want, do what we want. And that's an interesting element to the dynamic we're painting the picture of, because when Mars was in Libra for the last eclipse, it was very diplomatic.
Right.
You know, Libra really dampens the heat of Mars. It's in its detriment there. And so it feels constrained, and it can be a little more diplomatic in that sense, a little more fair. But now that Mars is in Scorpio,
it's stinging.
It's like, it can call bullshit any way that it wants to.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's opposite Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion. You know, any conversation Jupiter is having in the sky with another planet, it's expanding that. Typically thought of as good fortune, but not always.
Right.
You know, too much of something can be too much. And so here we have these very powerful planets, again, pulling in this sort of tug of war. It's just a very dynamic, intense, inflated, powerful energy. And so again, I think so much of this is, every time I'm saying something intense like this, I keep thinking, go inward, go inward. Like, the peace is inside right now, not on the outside.
Yeah. And that seems to be the answer, maybe even in 47, being able to move through. I know I skipped over 45 there. I feel like we talked about it a bit, or 44, excuse me. But 47 just stuck out to me, because all that you're saying and all that's going on, 47, the ability to alchemize, to turn base metal into gold, to have those thoughts yield and turn in the fire of their rumbling, turn into something that is truth.
Yeah. Good support seeing there from Venus astrologically. You know, it's in a trine to Uranus, but if we think of it as a midpoint, the midpoint between Jupiter at 11 degrees and Uranus at 21 would be somewhere in here. Well, that's basically where this trine is with Venus and Virgo. So Venus bringing our values and desires to bring the Virgoan details to the habits, health supporting habits of Virgo, which is like, how do we actually work this out? Like, we've got to do it a certain way. And we're trying to realize in gate 47 what the heck what is that way. It's in the channel of abstraction, so it could be confusing. 1 minute we're at the high end of the wave thinking it's all kosher, and the next minute we're at the low end. But it is supporting, I think, it bringing that trine, which is Venus is in on the conversation, and it's saying we've got to bring some details and some order.
Yeah. And we've got to be able to sit in the fire, to be able to recognize the truth when it comes around. But if we're so busy trying to get out of the fire, right? So busy trying to get the car off of our foot, we don't arrive there.
Yeah. Very well said. And so I think just we were on gate 27. So much stability through this intense period can be brought in here in this tribal channel where we find gate 27, the gate of caring, and the channel of preservation and design of custodianship. Where are we giving our energy to care for others? Right. It just all keeps kind of coming back to that initial Libra story we started a couple of weeks ago. And as we moved through that in this portal till today, the exact lunar eclipse today, right now, where is our attention?
Right. And this is the generosity of spirit in the fourth line, and it's the moon and the earth. So it's what grounds us and our attraction to people and things, the moon and the water relationship. And so where is our spirit nurtured, and how can we be generous with it? Where does the energy live? Chiron is my only Taurus, heading to natural shore for the eclipse, full moon, and Halloween. Glad I caught in for the drive.
Oh, nice.
Nice to see you here.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're getting to the water for the eclipse.
That's a great idea. That's fantastic. Well,
wow, that felt really good.
Yeah, and I mean, we've moved through all the I think we should wrap it up with the nodes then, since there's while we're having this eclipse, we are in South Node gate 32 in Libra and North Node gate 42 in Aries. And
no, go ahead. Well, I was just gonna what is worth finishing? Like what is worth bringing to maturity to
right.
What's the value there?
Gate 32 being the gate of continuity, the instinctual awareness to know what is of value to support the tribe going forward.
Right.
And it's a fear of failure of the tribe. So it's an intense fear gate to keep us alive. And where do we, from that eclipse in Libra at that South Node gate 32, what in that relationship had truth for each person? What can be carried forward in that relationship, or what was the end of it that can be learned from the wisdom brought forward into the next relationship, which is gate 42, the gate of growth and wisdom and expansion, evolution, and the channel of maturation, right? This is our experiential way forward into evolution. And so all of this is tying into that nodal axis.
And it's so beautiful to see again, even after we've talked about this, and we've been talking about it for days, but even after we talked about it right now, you can just really see how however this creation began, the evolution is into becoming ourselves with and for the other. It's so beautiful to see. It moves me every time I can, we talk about these things and you can see the code behind the code, and it's just so benevolent, and it makes me so grateful that, this creation is for us. It's not against us. There is always something working in our favor. And so even though it may be chaotic, and even though you may feel a little ungrounded and your nervous system may be a wreck, and, things may be coming up that you don't know how to deal with, there is always support. There is always something. If you be present now. If you arrive in the moment, there is always an oracle, a something for you that is pointing the way.
And it's extremely poignant at this moment as this eclipse is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And in fact, that eclipse is going to be exact in about 2 or 3 minutes. Now, these lunar eclipses take about 3 to 4 hours. If we were able to see it here, which our friends from Signpost that live in Australia and the other sides of the world, I'm sure some of them, if they're out right now, could witness this beautiful events. It takes about an hour to move into place, and then it's exact for about an hour, and then an hour to dissipate. So unlike a solar eclipse, which only lasts a few minutes, these have a bit of a duration, but it is exact here in a few minutes. And so to what you just said, I think it's a beautiful time right now to hug ourselves, if you will, right? To really embrace the beauty of being alive, right? We are here for a reason. We all have a part to play in this orchestra. And the energy and the quality of time right now is really nudging us and pressurizing us to dig deep to find out what is your note.
What song do you sing?
Right, exactly.
And start singing it.
Yeah, what is your creative message now in the planet?
Right.
And we all have something to share, and we do have to go through the dark night of the soul sometimes to find that. We do have to live through this gate 36, line 3, called the line of transition, when the darkening of the light has reached its zenith, and now the idea that we can come back again. So much has been drawing us down into this deep transformative spirit of time that we're in. And,
absolutely. And it's there's always light if you look for it, but if we want to think about 36 and Neptune, we're coming up over the hill.
Yeah, right.
Excuse me.
All right. Well, I hope everyone gets to spend a few minutes with yourself and think about these things and how this eclipse is affecting everyone.
And spend time with the moon tonight.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. We can see Jupiter next to the moon. We'll be watching that again tonight, just as bright as ever. Brandy had a telescope, so we could actually see the moons of Jupiter last night. It was just magical, unbelievable.
It was magic. So yeah, I mean, the moon's in 27, so the neutrino stream, well, I mean, the moon moves pretty fast, but be with the moon.
She is there for us.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.